And although Bill's song is a light-hearted look at an answer to that question, how do we justify that people who claim to be followers, friends of Jesus, are sometimes people that we really don't like that much? Most of us who grew up in the church remember seeing pictures of Jesus surrounded by children. And in the artist's depiction, he may have been laughing, or more than likely had a child or two sitting on his lap, or perhaps clustered around his feet. And along with those images, we would be quoted Matthew, where Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven." And we'd also be reminded by our Sunday school teachers that Jesus is our friend, today and always. Diana Butler Bass, in her book Freeing Jesus, wrote, "Friend seems a gentle way of understanding Jesus, yet it's often a term that is mocked. Atheists sometimes ridicule Christians as having an invisible friend. But criticism, she says, is not limited just to atheists. I've heard famous preachers and theologians explicitly attack the idea of Jesus as a friend as being somewhat juvenile, and instead are arguing for a more mature Jesus. Those who engage in that kind of mockery might be surprised to learn that much of this antagonism goes back to Sigmund Freud, who concluded that God, the invisible friend, was an illusion, a fairy tale, a projection, an infantile prototype, and in his words, a neurosis. The Bible, however, tells us a very different story about friendship with God, especially in the Hebrew Scriptures. Friendship is anything but immaturity. It's a gift of wisdom. The wisdom of Solomon says that in every generation, wisdom passes into holy souls and makes them friends of God and prophets. Early Christians, most of whom were Jews, knew all of this, and they extended that idea of divine friendship to Jesus. The New Testament vividly recounts the closeness of Jesus' circle of friends, women and men who had been transformed by their relationship with him. The only episode in which Jesus cries is at the tomb of Lazarus, whom he referred to as our friend. At the beginning of the school year in 2019 in the United States, a photo showing two little boys holding hands went viral. Connor, an autistic boy entering the second grade, was going to school alone for the first time. And although the bus trip went well, when he arrived at the school, he froze with fear, and he started to cry. He hid in a corner, unable to walk into the building. Christian, another boy, saw Connor and went to comfort him. And then he took Connor by the hand and led him inside the building. "He found me and held my hand, and I got happy tears," Connor told a reporter who asked about Christian. "He was kind to me. I was in the first day of school and I started crying. And then he helped me, and I was happy." Connor's mother said Christian is Connor's first real friend. And Christian's mother explained they have an inseparable bond. Well, who would have believed it without a picture? A white boy named Connor huddled in a corner. A black boy named Christian. Christian, reaching out to help him. It seems an icon for today, Jesus tenderly leading a frightened boy toward a new world. "This is my commandment," Jesus said, "that you love one another as I have loved you. You are my friends if you do what I command you." Diana Bass commented, "I'm not sure if I ever knew what to make of those words of Jesus. You are my friends if you do what I command you. It all sounded so conditional," she said. What kind of friendship was that? The story of Connor and Christian, she said, clarified it. Friendship is contingent on love, real love, compassion, empathy, reaching out, going beyond what we imagine is possible. That's the command, love. And if we reach out in love, friendship is the result, even friendship with God. Friendship is friendship is mutual, a hand extended and another reaching back. And when I think of friendship with Jesus, I imagine that hand being extended out to us. It happens in different ways, of course. Sometimes the hand might be part of an ancient story. The hand of Jesus outstretched to embrace little children or to invite us in to follow him. But more often, it's the hand of another person. When we feel afraid, huddled in a corner, unable to move forward, it's the hand that reaches out to comfort, remind us that we're not alone, or guide us toward the next step on the journey. St. Teresa of Avila once said, "God has no hands but yours. Yours are the hands with which God blesses all the world." And sometimes we are the one who needs the hand, and at other times ours can be the hand that reaches out. Friendship is an eternal circle, the ceaseless reaching toward one another that strengthens us and gives us joy. "I do not call you servants," Jesus said, "but I have called you friends." Astonishing, isn't it? Of course he was their friend. They had been through so much together, years of wandering homeless in Israel, learning from and teaching one another, sharing meals and prayers. They had come to suspect their companion was something more than a regular friend, a great rabbi, a spiritual healer, a mystical prophet, the Son of God. And that last one made no intellectual or doctrinal sense to them. They were Jews, and there was only one God. And yet this friend of theirs knew and loved God more infinitely, more intimately, and more uniquely than they have ever imagined possible. Jesus brought them to the very heart of God and then revealed that God's heart longed for friendship. They'd heard this story before. Abraham, Moses, and Miriam were friends of God, as were the prophets and the seers of ancient times, and the great heroes of Israel like Ruth and Naomi, Esther and David and Jonathan. They were more than servants to God. Servanthood, although admirable, is the lesser thing. Friendship, the knowing, loving, and free and joyful giving to one another, is the passionate desire of God. And now Jesus is saying, "I have called you friends," not to just those special people of the past whose names were recorded in sacred memory, but to the ragged fishermen and curious women sitting around him listening to his tales, trusting for the first time that the God of Israel hadn't forgotten them. Souls broken under the weight of Roman oppression, suffering under imperial slavery. They were not slaves. They were not even servants. They were friends of Jesus, friends of God. Now in that world, Caesar was a god. Everyone feared him. He had no friends. The Egyptians and the Persians had gods, but none of those gods were friends to regular people. They were gods to be satisfied, gods that needed to have their wrath appeased. There were gods aplenty, all awaiting servile sacrifices and terrified loyalty, cold and isolated and distant in the marble and gold templates. Those gods demanded so much of you, craving blood to prove obeisance, sometimes even your own, if and when the whim suggested itself. Jesus calls us friends. God reaches toward us not as a fearsome master or judge, but a friend, beckoning us to reach back. And then those memories of Eden flood one's heart, that ancient longing for friendship with God. The exile is ended. The rough ways are made plain. The embrace endures. Once we were created by that hand that reached out to dust and rib, and now that same hand joins ours again and again in the clasp of an unfailing friend. Professor William Rollins said that close friendship is made up of three simple things: somebody to talk to, somebody to depend on, and someone to enjoy. Now, children, of course, know the ease of this, and it underscores how important freedom is in the exchange. God freely reaches out, and we freely reach back. And this radical, inclusive friendship of God shows up in the New Testament, where Jesus is accused of being a friend of sinners and tax collectors, because many of his closest associates, his friends, were outcasts and marginal people. It was an odd group of friends, one that went well beyond convention, and included in Luke's words the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Perhaps the simplest thing to understand in the New Testament is that Jesus invites his friends to dinner, all of them, respectable and not. The earliest followers of Jesus gathered at table, making the meal or feast the focus for the new community. And so we too are called to turn outward, to reach out, to invite others to come along. We don't just please ourselves to work to serve others. We invite them to the table, to sit and enjoy the companionship of all. We give up the false notions of friendship, notions of exclusivity and preference. And instead we set a table where everyone is welcome, where strangers become friends, and where every person is an honored guest, because Jesus is our friend and calls us to be a friend to all the world too. Thanks be to God. Amen.